Hello. This is the continuation of Unfortunately for Society, Izuku is a Khanivore. Written by LouieTheDragon. Read by Stick. Chapter 11. Now there's no need to get angry, my dear. It's just business. Summary. Protective Izuku. In the evening, a couple of days later, Izuku walked into the League's bar, absolutely livid. His eyes were a blazing red, wild and manic. His mouth wasn't shaped into his usual wide smile, but instead a cold snarl with jagged teeth jutting out from his lips. He just barely managed to keep his hands along with the rest of him from transforming, so he stuffed them into his pockets. Who the fuck took one of mine? Because both Shinso Hitoshi and Todoroki Shoto are off limits. As soon as Izuku started to speak, Shigaraki looked up from his gaming console so fast that had Izuku been any other state, he would have thought he had gotten whiplash from that. Before either Shigaraki or Kurogiri could say anything in response, Sensei's computer crackled to life with sound. My apologies, Quick-Lash. I wasn't aware you had staked a claim on these two. Both boys have such interesting quirks, and Gurodai, my doctor, wanted to experiment on them. Sensei spoke. Izuku let out a low, reverberating warning growl. The occupants of the bar, for the first time they've ever experienced, could sense that Sensei was backtracking, trying to appease the being in front of them. But we accept that both boys belong to you, and we will not touch them, Sensei said. Izuku smiled, not wide, but jagged teeth and all. Good. The smile stayed for a little longer while he stared at the ground for a bit. His face was back to normal after that. With a happy-looking neutral expression, he went to sit at the bar. Shigaraki looked at him pretty much the whole time. Yeah, this just reminds me not to piss you off again. Thanks, Shigu. Uh-huh. As Shigaraki turned back to his console, he spoke again. You're actually just in time, too. We have a group of new recruits about to come in. Some were inspired by Stain. Others were just in the player list. Izuku perked up in interest. Any malice in the past minute seemed to be gone. The change was almost frightening. Oi, Shigaraki, I've got your recruits. All three of them turned their heads toward the door, where Jiren was leaning against the frame of the door's threshold. He stepped aside to reveal a lineup of people. A deeply scarred man stood at the very right, first in line. He introduced himself as Dobby. Next in order were Toga, Spinner, Compress, Magne, Twice, Muscular, and Mustard. Having looked up their files before, Izuku didn't need to ask or know who they were. Izuku's eyes lit up in a flux merit. Sako, you made it. His smile was bright and innocent, and though he was wearing a mask, Compress looked slightly perturbed. Walking forward, he stepped in front of Izuku and shook his hand. Toga, the schoolgirl with two blonde messy space buns, took that as her cue to get out of the line and skip up to Izuku. Oh, you're cute. I just want to eat you up. Shigaraki snorted and muttered audibly. Yeah, wrong choice of words. A small chuckle escaped Mr. Compress, who agreed with Shigaraki, having seen firsthand the actions of Izuku. Toga turned to give a confused look at both men. Why is that a weird choice of words? She turned back to Izuku, a confused but nonetheless happy expression on her face. Why is that weird? Izuku licked his lips. Tell me, Toga Himiko, have you heard the name Quick-Lash? He wasn't expecting her eyes to light up in the sound of his villain name, nor was he expecting her arms to wrap around his midsection. Oh, Quickun is even more my idol than Stainy. Of all the strange things he predicted, this wasn't one of them. Kui-kun? He asked. Shigaraki wondered why was that the weird thing he pointed out in all this overall strange conversation. Toga kept up her fanged smile. Of course. Quicklash is too long and too formal. Quickie sounds weird. So does Lashy. But Kui-kun sounds nice, she babbled. Izuku agreed with that logic. Okay then, he said. He then turned to Magne and started unloading his questions. Hi, do you prefer Magne full-time or do you want to keep that as a villain name? If the former, would you prefer Hakashi Magne or do you prefer Kenji when out in public? Wait, is Kenji your dead name? He put a finger to his chin as he rambled. Magne was surprised. She heard of the famed Quicklash's ruthlessness, but this was nothing like the rumors. This made him seem more human, in terms of emotion at least. She remembered she was supposed to be answering his questions. She wasn't going to ask how he knew their names, if compress was any indication. She smiled brightly. I'd prefer Magni full-time. My parents are transphobic and refuse to legally change my name, so yes, Kenji is my dead name. Izuku soaked up the information like a sponge. He smiled innocently, despite the fact that he was anything but. It went on like that in a strangely routine manner, and then he got to Dobby, who introduced himself as just Dobby. He wasn't going to pry further than that. He left the bar a few hours later, happy with all his new friends, and happy that they agreed to his term of not touching what belongs to him, and he only had to make one threat to them. That was a new record. Tsukachi figured that he should be ecstatic at the new information of the Soul Stealer case, but instead that feeling of dread grew heavier. It was only a suspicion, still, it was more than they've had this entire time. Endeavor spotted a strange creature at the location of the 3 UA students in their fight with Stain, which the fact that they have to cover that up is too much paperwork for him right now. There wasn't a good descriptive image of it, but many of the witnesses at the scene, mostly heroes, who were used to giving descriptions, they said that its claws looked razor sharp, as did its teeth. But it wasn't the link to the case, no. The link to the case was a mere 2 blocks over, where 2 bodies were found. One of them was missing a heart, and the other had its heart inside of its body, but barely touched, besides a small rip in the urethra. But this was a good thing, though. But this was also a good thing. Now they know slightly more of what to look for in suspects. Transformative type quirk. Mostly likely requires human flesh, or the person is just crazy. Tsukachi figures that this new piece of information deserved an actual good night's sleep.